Ladies and gentlemen, if you're over 70, you already know life feels different, time moves faster, people around you change, and your own body reminds you every day that every choice matters more than ever. The truth is, at this stage, life is not just about adding years, it's about adding life to your years. And that's why today's message is so important. I'm going to share 3 things you should never say, never do, and never go to, because they quietly steal your health, happiness, and dignity. But I'm not going to tell them in the usual order. I'm going to start with the one most people ignore, then move to one that's deeply personal, and end with the most important one of all, the one you must hear before it's too late. First, the third on the list, but the one I want you to hear right now: never go where your spirit feels small. At this age, energy is precious. You can't waste it in places that shrink your soul. It might be a relative's home where you're treated like a burden. It might be a social group where people only gossip, complain, and tear others down. It might even be a community you've been part of for decades. But every time you leave, you feel more tired, more doubtful, and more invisible than before. When you were younger, you might have endured it to keep the peace, to maintain appearances, or because you felt obligated. But after 70, the cost is too high. Every time you step into a place that steals your joy, you are spending one of the limited days you have left on earth in misery, and you can't buy those days back. Your surroundings shape your spirit, and your spirit shapes your health. Studies have shown that seniors who maintain positive social environments live longer, recover faster from illness, and enjoy better memory. So before it's too late, remove yourself from places where your soul is dimmed, and instead go where you feel seen, valued. Next, the second on the list: never do what breaks your body for the sake of pleasing others. You've spent decades working, serving, helping, lifting, carrying, and sacrificing. You've already paid your dues. Now, the worst mistake would be to ignore your body's signals just to avoid saying no. Maybe it's carrying heavy bags because you don't want to bother your children. Maybe it's staying on your feet for hours at a family gathering because you don't want to seem lazy. Maybe it's eating food that makes you sick just because it's offered with love. Listen to me carefully. At this age, your body is your only permanent home. If you damage it now, recovery is slower, harder, and sometimes impossible. People who love you will respect your limits. Those who don't respect them do not deserve to decide how you live. And please remember this: you are not a burden for protecting your health. You are wise. Every no you say to something that harms you is a yes to more days of independence, more days of laughter, and more mornings where you wake up without pain. Finally, the most important one, the first in meaning, but the last I want to share: never say words that close your own doors to life. At 70 and beyond, your words are not just communication. They are declarations to your mind, your body, and your soul. When you say, "I'm too old for that," your brain believes you. When you say, "It's too late for me," your heart slows down its dreams. When you say, "I can't," your body stops trying. I've seen elders in their 90s learn new skills, travel to new countries, and start new hobbies, not because they had more energy than others, but because they never told themselves they couldn't. The most dangerous prison is the one you build with your own words. Instead of shutting doors with sentences of defeat, open them with words of possibility. I'm still learning. I'm willing to try. My best days can still be ahead. Even science agrees. Optimism improves heart health, strengthens immunity, and increases life. Your words are seeds, and every day you choose whether to plant flowers or weeds. Friends, you might have noticed each of these 3 warnings is about protection: protecting your spirit from toxic places, protecting your body from harmful actions, and protecting your mind from limiting words. Because here's the truth. After 70, every single day is a precious page in the final chapters of your story. You don't want those pages filled with regret about where you went, what you did, or what you said. Before we close, let me share a short story. A few years ago, I met an 82-year-old woman named Margaret. She told me that for most of her life, she went to the same weekly group of friends, but every week she left feeling smaller because the conversation was always about who was sick, who had failed, and who had disappointed them. One day, she decided not to go. Instead, she joined a community painting class for beginners. She hadn't painted since she was a child. The first day, she said she felt nervous. "I'm too old for this," she whispered to herself. But the teacher, a man in his 60s, heard her and said, "You're just in time." 3 years later, Margaret's paintings hang in her local library. She told me, "I wish I had left that old group 20 years ago." My friends, you don't need 20 years to make a change. You only need today. So I ask you, which of these three will you start with? Will you leave the place where your soul feels small? Will you stop doing things that break your body? Or will you begin speaking words that give you life instead of take it away? Whichever you choose, do it now, because time is not waiting. Your turn. I want to hear from you in the comments. Which of these three speaks to you the most right now? And is there one you wish you had learned earlier in life? Your words might inspire someone else to take action before it's too late.